How you doing? How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Part two. Yes, part two of was Trump's shooting staged? I say yes, it was staged, but we're on part two. All right, this is the Common Sense Party podcast. I'm your host, DOTTLY. The Common Sense Party podcast mission is to inform our listeners on topics that affect the everyday person. Rate, review, follow, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to rate, review, and follow, subscribe. Please give us 5 stars, give us 4 stars, give us 3 stars, give us 2 stars. You can even give us 1 star. So if you don't give us any stars, I'll just assume I'm doing it properly. We are available on all platforms. We're available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Samsung Podcast, Pandora, YouTube Music, formerly Google Podcast, TuneIn, and Apple. Yes, we are on Apple Podcasts. You can contact us at the Common Sense Party Pod at gmail.com. We're available on Instagram, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and TikTok. You can support. Yes, you can support via Cash App or Zelle. The information is on the About page of our podcast. Yes, I'm going to pick up from where we left off. How Maga is blaming Biden for a lone wolf shooter who is a registered Republican. He tried to kill Donald Trump. We at the Common Sense Party podcast, Cartoon Rewind podcast, and the Ninjas of Another Color podcast do not condone political violence, but in my opinion, this looks staged. So let's check this out.
Attempt on Donald Trump is that he is the candidate who pushes and advocates for political violence and has done, whether it's referring to shooting immigrants at the border or fighting like hell at the U.S. Capitol. And as we know, him and the Maga Republican Party have the support of the National Rifle Association, and they are dead against the banning of AR-15 style weapons, which was the weapon used to potentially assassinate Donald Trump at this rally in Pennsylvania. Now, it's being investigated as an assassination attempt, and so that's why I'm referring to it as that. But that moment, that Che Guevara moment that Donald Trump clearly attempted to make use of once he realized that he, was still alive and that he had a flesh wound to the right ear, where he pumped his fist in the air with blood on his face, being rushed off the stage by the Secret Service. These images are history-making and undoubtedly will have an effect on the election in November. And even Donald Trump's son, Eric, was the first to post that image on social media with the caption, "This is the fighter that America needs."
Nope, he's not.
It's a very sad day because political violence on any level should not be happening. But of course, we live in a country where people are armed and where people claim that they have a right to own weapons. They interpret the Constitution to mean a full array of weapons of war, and some of them, as we've seen, may choose to use them. We now know that it was an AR-15 style weapon. We know that this shooter was up on a rooftop, actually outside the kind of fairground where the rally was, and was able to kind of shoot at long range towards Donald Trump. It's kind of uncertain whether or not it was a bullet that kind of brushed his ear or whether it was the glass from the teleprompter shattering. We'll probably find out in time. But Donald Trump has actually posted on Truth Social. We assume it's Donald Trump. It's quite well written. He writes, "I want to thank the United States Secret Service and all of law enforcement for their rapid response on the shooting that just took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, I wanted to extend my condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed and also to the family of another person that was badly injured. It is incredible that such an act can take place in our country. Nothing is known at this time about the shooter, who is now dead. I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong, in that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening. God bless America. Interesting use of language and use of words from the former president. And clearly, he will be using this moment, these images, and this very dramatic story to fundraise and to electioneer and to claim that this is the Democrats. And tragically, that horrific rhetoric has already started to be posted from people such as J.D. Vance, who is a likely vice presidential candidate for Donald Trump. He posted, "Today is not just some isolated incident. The central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs." That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination.
Beat him at the battle box.
That is simply not true. It's true that he is an authoritarian fascist, and we should not dial that back whatsoever. And if you've read his manifesto in the form of Project 2025, you'll recognize that this far-right Christian nationalist, white supremacist view of America is exactly that. But nobody on the left has ever called for political violence. Nobody has ever suggested that Donald Trump should be assassinated. Nobody has ever suggested that people take weapons to a rally. You will remember that on January 6th, it was Donald Trump that wanted people to be able to bring their weapons to a rally. And of course, we now know that the Oath Keepers very much did do that. But this is where we're at, you know? This idea that somebody who we know nothing about at this stage should be used as a platform to suggest that Democrats have suggested that this type of violence is necessary. And Ronnie Jackson, the former White House doctor or pill supplier, he posted, "Trump deranged left-wing lunatics that parade around MSNBC and other fake news outlets demonizing Trump and calling him Hitler are directly responsible for this violent attack on President Trump's life. They have blood on their hands. Enough of the violent rhetoric. America is pissed," he said. I mean, these extremist positions bear no resemblance to the language of Democrats or even journalists such as myself. We do not over-dramatize this moment in American political history. And as tragic as this event was, and we now know that not just the one person who died in the crowd, but two others are critically ill now in hospital, injured from the shrapnel or the bullets flying in the air. I mean, this guy fired off a lot of bullets from this AR-15 at long range. And so, it's any wonder that more people were not killed. But more disgraceful and sickening tweets from a sitting Republican member of Congress, this time Mike Collins of Georgia. He posted simply, "Joe Biden sent the orders." Joe Biden, incidentally, has spoken to the nation and has condemned all political violence. He's also tried to contact Donald Trump directly to offer his support and condolences. He's also cancelled all of his political campaigning and TV ads and the like. That is what a civil leader does. That is the important part of being a civilized political figure, not to incite violence as Donald Trump has done. And there is a certain irony with the fact that it was Donald Trump that was targeted, considering that he is the one that advocates for political violence. And so this is where we're at now. This day that will be remembered. Donald Trump will certainly remember this day. He'll certainly use this day for fundraising.
Of course he will.
And what we've seen is Republicans come out and use very explicit language, blaming Democrats, blaming the rhetoric of Trump being an extremist. Trump is an extremist. That does not change. I want to make that point that, Donald Trump's former presidency and future presidency, if he was to win, would be devastating to human rights and women's rights and the democratic values of America. And yet, Nancy Pelosi posted, as one whose family has been the victim of political violence, I know firsthand that political violence of any kind has no place in our society. I thank God that former President Trump is safe. As we learn more details about this horrifying incident, let us pray that all those in attendance at the former president's rally today are unharmed. She posted that at 4:30 in the afternoon, probably before the news that one had died. And so, you know, this is a Democrat. This is a former speaker. This is somebody whose own husband, Paul Pelosi, was attacked by a Trump supporter with a hammer inside his own home. This is the reality of the political division in the US right now. And it is such that the media has been, failing to really expose what is happening, where political parties in the US, instead of vying for public support so that they can act in the public interest, are presented as political enemies, and you're either in one camp or the other. I personally don't believe that that's how the people are, and I believe that if you poll people nationally, you'll see that America is a far more progressive and respectful place than the media would have us believe. So we are reflecting, reporting on this news as Joe Biden has appeared on television saying there was no place in America for political violence. He's expressed concern for his Republican opponent and said he hoped to speak with him later tonight. And politicians from all across the political spectrum, people who agree on very little else, are coming together to say violence has no place in a democracy. I'm Anthony Davis. You can catch me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel. And
All right. Now we're going to see how legacy media spins this. Are they going to talk about Trump, or are they going to talk about how Biden needs to drop out? All right, so we're going to have some more. Let's see what they're talking about the shooter.
Rhetoric has gotten so heated. There are accusations and, comments about the fact that electing somebody would be the end of democracy as we know it, that kind of thing. We had former Attorney General Bill Barr say last night, Democrats have got to stop their grossly irresponsible talk about President Trump being an existential threat to democracy. He is not. Where do we go in our political conversation? I mean, this country is built on being able to disagree and do it in a very heated way.
Do you want to push back on what David was saying about essentially saying that this is a problem that came from the Democratic side? And I would hope that we could take a little time off before we get to this. But the rhetoric out of the Republican side, out of Donald Trump himself or Don Jr. about the attack on Paul Pelosi, mocking him, making up a rumor that this was some gay sex event, right? And wasn't a terrible attack by someone who was politically motivated and could have taken his life. No. That is the genesis of this. This goes back to 2016.
In the wake of yesterday's abhorrent assassination attempt of former President Trump, there has been, as you can imagine, a variety of responses. Most notably, there has been unanimous condemnation amongst the Democratic Party, spearheaded by the president himself.
I spoke with Donald Trump. I'm sincerely grateful that he's doing well and recovering. And we had a short but good conversation. Phil and I are keeping him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victim who was killed. He was a father. He was protecting his family from the bullets that were being fired. He lost his life. God love him. We're also praying for the full recovery of those who were injured. And we're grateful to the Secret Service agencies and other law enforcement agencies and individuals who risk their lives. There is no place in America for this kind of violence or any violence for that matter.
However, as one can also come to expect in a country so divided, an insatiable amount of conspiracy theories and unsubstantiated claims have been given a platform, mostly on X, thanks to Elon Musk's hillside, be mainstreamed. And I mean, it's one thing, right, for Republicans to find a way to blame this on Biden somehow, but how they're able to take a shooting committed by a white Republican male and make it about DEI is just next level verbal gymnastics.
Said something about how we all love our country, and I think it's generally true. Most Americans do love their country. One thing that I have found upsetting, if I can editorialize for 1 second, is the degree to which so many Americans claim to love their country but hate their fellow Americans. And I'm not talking about Republicans or Democrats. I see it everywhere, and I'm wondering if that's something that concerns you too.
It does. That's what I said. The greatest threat to our nation right now is we're horribly divided. But again, in general, we share the same goals. So, why are we so divided? Well, there are political figures, there are political groups. I would argue that's what identity politics is about. That's what critical race theory is about. So there are people who are purposely divide us for political advantage. Resist it. Don't let them get away with it. And again, start talking to each other. That's part of the problem.
Getting back to the rhetoric, right, because it's an important subject. Those of us understanding the danger posed with inflammatory rhetoric who condemned the attack on Paul Pelosi and the insurrection at the Capitol consistently warned of how such rhetoric often begets violence. However, while I've yet to see the alleged violent rhetoric that has seemingly emerged from the left leading to this ghastly event, as many MAGA Republicans have alluded to,
I'm really disgusted because here's why. Just earlier today on a fundraising phone call, and I'll quote, I want to make sure I get it right. Joe Biden told his donors that it's time to put Trump in a bullseye. Well, guess what? That is exactly what someone did today with their rifle as they attempted to assassinate President Trump. They did exactly what Joe Biden said.
Well, Joe Biden broke America's pledge to never leave a man behind. Nancy Pelosi is sneaking the Green New Deal into the $3.5 trillion budget. And in 2022, I'm going to blow away the Democrat socialist agenda.
Wow.
Thankfully, Jessica Talbot chose the perfect time to return to the Fox News airwaves to make this very point, and how, despite what the MAGA contingent are claiming, violent rhetoric is not bipartisan.
Border, it's focusing on crimes and a campaign. Yeah. Which that totally makes sense to me. But I do want to push back on what David was saying about essentially saying that this is a problem that came from the Democratic side. And I would hope that we could take a little time off before we get to this. But the rhetoric out of the Republican side, out of Donald Trump himself or Don Jr. about the attack on Paul Pelosi, mocking him, making a rumor that this was some gay sex event, right? And wasn't a terrible attack by someone who was politically motivated and could have taken his life. No. That is the genesis of this. This goes back to 2016. Well, you can chicken and egg
To America.
Do you think that this is a bit of a wake-up call, that rhetoric has gotten so heated? There are accusations and, comments about the fact that electing somebody would be the end of democracy as we know it, that kind of thing. We had former Attorney General Bill Barr say last night, Democrats have got to stop their grossly irresponsible talk about President Trump being an existential threat to democracy. He is not. Where do we go in our political conversation? I mean, this country is built on being able to disagree and do it in a very heated way. But what about this?
Well, it is. But there is no place in politics in any way, shape or form for this kind of violence, for these types of actions. It's a horrific act. And we certainly don't know all of the details, and we're going to have time for investigations on it. But right now, I think everybody in America needs to stop. They need to pause. They need to reflect on what is actually important for us in this political process going forward. And, fortunately, we are here in Milwaukee, and the show is going to take place. I think it's tremendously important for us as a country that the Republican Party is going to move forward. We are going to be strong. We are going to be resilient, and certainly President Trump is going to be strong and resilient.
So let me speak candidly for a second, right? To those that have tweeted and messaged me asking for my opinion. As has been reiterated across the Midas media network, there is no excuse for violence of any kind, regardless of how one feels about someone's policies, difference of opinion, or rhetoric, right? But as I've also said, we must be honest and acknowledge, sadly, that shootings are a common method of conflict resolution within this very fragmented American society. Still, somehow there seems to be this numb response to the fact that an AR-15 was used, and a complete disregard for the ubiquity of gun violence itself.
Right, we couldn't see him, but we could hear him. So we walked up, and probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking. I'm estimating here. I have no idea, but we noticed the guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, and we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof, we can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2 or 3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
So, yeah, I'm relieved that the former president was not seriously harmed. But I would also ask those on the other side who are vehemently voicing their outrage to keep that same energy when a school shooting or mass shooting takes place. Because, listen, if the Secret Service cannot protect a candidate for president from a maniac with a rifle, how in the hell can we expect a teacher to protect a classroom of kids?
We must unite as one nation. We must unite as one nation to demonstrate who we are.
So allow me to reiterate Jessica Tarlow's point again. All I've seen is a unified approach from the Democrats, even the most stringent anti-Trump representatives fully condemning this atrocious attack with their full chest. Unlike when a madman tried to kill Paul Pelosi and MAGA Republicans, well, they joked about it. So, of course, our thoughts are with the former president, but don't tell me that both parties are the same here.
When we used to meet evil on the battlefield, well, guess what we did to it? We killed it. We didn't quibble about it. We didn't argue about it. We didn't fight about it. We killed it. Some liberal somewhere is going to say that sounds awful. Too bad. Get mad at me if you want to.
No
Folks need chilling. It's time for somebody to say it. It's not a matter of vengeance. It's not a matter of being mean or spiteful. It's a matter of necessity.
Hey, Midas Mighty, love this report. Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram, @Mighty.
Could the shooter have listened to that black guy and said, time for someone to die? Right. Let's go ahead and listen to our guy, Bo. Bo always has some good information. We support him. Let's go ahead and listen to Bo.
Howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So today we are going to talk about Pennsylvania and former President Trump, the events that appear to have transpired today. We will go over what is known and what has been said by people who were present. We're going to try to steer clear of the speculation that is certainly going to be rampant over the next 24 to 48 hours. Okay, so if you have not heard yet, it appears that an attempt was made on former President Trump while he was giving a speech in Pennsylvania. He was on stage speaking. There was a set of popping noises. The former president was on the ground Secret Service covering him. There was a second distinct set of popping noises, which is most likely the response from Secret Service. The injury that is visible on the former president on his ear is consistent with a graze.
Oh, God.
That type of injury is normally something that is fixed up pretty quickly. There are eyewitnesses from the scene who have said that they believe people who were behind the former president were also hit. That has not been confirmed yet, but given the crowd behind him, it seems likely. Now, there is reporting that says the suspect is in custody. Some of the Secret Service statements and transmissions were picked up live. I would be surprised if the suspect is still with us, based on some of the things that were said in the immediate aftermath of the response. Now, as far as a political response, politicians from across the country and the world have come out and condemned what is an apparent act of political violence. This runs the political spectrum, not just in the United States, but all over the world. The former president, as I understand it, was transported from the scene to a hospital where there is obviously a security presence both inside and outside of the hospital. It is based on statements. The former president is expected to fully recover from this.
It was a great sitting here.
So that is what is known at time of filming. Undoubtedly, there is going to be more reporting. There's going to be a bunch of speculation about motive. There is a high probability that a lot of the eyewitness statements that have come out will be shown to be inaccurate, because that always occurs. I would wait until there is a solid amount of evidence and a review to really form opinions on what happened or speculate beyond what is immediately apparent. Again, it's going to be everywhere. So I would keep your guard up as far as bad information, because I would imagine a whole lot of it is about to come out. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day. So today we are going to talk about some of the questions that have arisen about what happened in Pennsylvania involving Trump. We're going to go through some of the questions, some of the speculation, some of the critiques, some of the potential effects and how it's being read, and just kind of go through everything all at once. This one may turn into a little bit of a rant, but I feel like it will answer or at least address most of the questions that have come in. Okay, so the big one, the one that's all over social media, speculation about motive. Hear me out on this. We don't know. Get comfortable with uncertainty. We don't know. You have a situation where there's a dramatic event and people are trying to assign motive, and they are marrying themselves to theories when there's no evidence. The evidence that has come out says that the suspect is a registered Republican who at one point in time donated to something that might indicate support of the Democratic Party. So, this is the actual evidence that we have at time of filming. That could be used to suggest that he is a never-Trump Republican. That could be used to suggest that he is a member of the Democratic Party who is just so ardent in his support that he registered as a Republican to vote in the primaries. It could be used to suggest that he is far, 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 far right and views Trump as a sellout. Could be any of those things. We don't know. The evidence isn't there. The other thing that's happening is the people who are making commentary about a potential motive, they're mostly political commentators, so they are looking for a political motive. We don't even have evidence to suggest that is true yet. This guy could have just read Catcher in the Rye too much, or because Trump's been talking about Hannibal Lecter and Silence of the Lambs, he wanted to impress Jodie Foster.
Sure.
If you don't get those references, just let it go. We don't know a motive yet. The other thing that is coming up are the failures, the security failures, and that is feeding into a lot of theories. Most of this is pointing at the marksman. Let's be clear on this. Unless the critiques are about breathing and stuff like that, they're not going to be real. The marksmen didn't fail. They didn't. You don't often see them in action, right? Because for them to do something, a whole bunch of other things had to fail.
Mm-hmm.
That type of security is based on concentric rings. The other rings had issues. If you want to talk about the failure, if I had to guess, and I don't have evidence to say this for certain, but I'm going to suggest there's a high probability that the advance team messed up and didn't realize that there was a building within a couple hundred yards that had rooftop access that needed to be secured. I'm going to suggest that that is probably the moment where things really started to go sideways. Or they flagged it, the advance team flagged it, but something happened, there was a miscommunication, and it didn't get secured. That's going to be a bigger mistake than anything that the marksman did. And then along this line, there's the kind of questioning that always accompanies dramatic events where, well, how did this kid do this? When we talk about irregular conflict on this channel, something that comes up often, a quote you will often hear me say, is that professional soldiers are predictable, but the world is full of amateurs. And people often misunderstand what that means. It's one of those things, you don't get it until you really get it. It's a lot like, what is the way of the warrior? And the answer to that question is death. And when you're young and stupid, you think that that means, yeah, the way of the warrior's death, because I'm a killer. Yea, though I've walked through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil because I'm the biggest, baddest, meanest person in the valley. That's not what it means. It's the resolute acceptance of your own death. And you don't figure that out right away. That saying about professional soldiers, it doesn't mean that the amateur is going to do something unpredictable and suffer a bad end. The saying indicates that professional soldiers are predictable. The world is full of amateurs, and it's going to be one of those amateurs that does something that is so outside of the norm, something that a professional would know better than to do, and they're going to come out of nowhere and clean your clock. World full of amateurs. That's how it happened. Now, one of the other things that has come up is how this is going to impact polling. There's conventional wisdom on this, saying that it will make Trump a more sympathetic a more sympathetic candidate. But this is not a conventional election. I don't know that that's going to hold true. We don't know. When you're talking about dramatic world events that carry a whole lot of significance, be comfortable with uncertainty. A lot of times, if you want to have a good read, you have to wait to get the information. You can't base it on vibes. You have to actually gather evidence to support your theory, not create a theory in seconds and then look for evidence to support it. Most of the things that are being debated right now, there literally isn't evidence to support it. And the one thing that there is actually evidence about, as far as best practices for security and stuff like that, the people who are debating about it, they're debating on the very last thing in a string of things to go wrong. So that's not actually really helpful either. I would wait. There will be more information to follow. Don't marry yourself to a theory right now. Wait until you get the information, and then you can form your own opinion. Most of the people who are out there providing speculation are doing it solely on vibes. There is no evidence to go on at time of filming to even discuss, much less debate what's happening. We don't know. Be comfortable with uncertainty. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.
That's bold. He's great. Be comfortable with uncertainty. You might never know. Somebody might try it again and Trump drops out. You never know. All right, moving forward. Bernie Sanders endorses Biden. What does that mean? Who knows? What does it mean?
Allie, welcome to you. So a short time ago, Senator Bernie Sanders throwing his full support behind President Biden, despite their disagreements. How significant is this for the campaign?
Yeah, Alex. Well, at this point, the Biden team will take any help they can get in easing the nerves of these Democratic lawmakers, and they are fully embracing this endorsement from notably a former political opponent of President Biden's, but also a decades-long friend of the president in the Senate. And Senator Bernie Sanders offers some more about the reasoning behind his decision in this New York Times op-ed. He says, quote, "This election offers a stark choice on issue after issue. If Mr. Biden and his supporters focus on these issues and refuse to be divided and distracted, the president will rally working families to his side in the industrial Midwest swing states and elsewhere and win the November election. And let me say this as emphatically as I can. For the sake of our kids and future generations, he must win." And that, Alex, is the message the president is trying to get out to as many Democratic lawmakers, especially as he can right now, as he really tries to shore up support and reverse the damage done from that June 27th debate performance. In the past few days, he's been working the phone. We know that is happening also today as he tries to talk to different groups, different caucuses in Congress, and reassure them that he is able to stay in this race and serve another 4 years in office. And of course, all of this is coming as we see this shift from the president in tone about how he is talking about his embattled candidacy. He was at a rally in Battleground, Michigan yesterday where we heard him address the press coverage of that poor debate performance, as well as some of the flubs he has made in recent days. He addressed those head on. Listen to some of that, some of his speech from that rally last night.
They've been hammering me because I sometimes confuse names. I say that's Charlie instead of Bill. But guess what? Donald Trump has gotten a free pass. But people would rather talk about how I mix up names. I guess they don't remember that Trump called Nikki Haley Nancy Pelosi.
As you heard, the president seizing on the opportunity to slam his predecessor. He also, at one point in that rally, listed the reasons he says that Trump is unfit to serve another term in the presidency. And notably, Alex, he also not only doubled down on his vow to stay in this race, he also offered a preview of what he would do in his first 100 days in office if he does win another term. But of course, all of this coming as so many Democrats are privately weighing whether to publicly call on him to step aside, and they're going to be watching his every move, his every word very closely over the coming days, Alex.
They sure will. But right now, it sure looks like he's in fighting form. Thank you very much.
One debate, just one debate, and everybody's panicked. Just one debate. He's doing the job. He's doing the job. He's earned the right for a second term. And let's see how his economy is doing after everybody's filling in for the debate.
Of the June 27th presidential debate, and in particular Joe Biden's performance, making a wall-to-wall situation on corporate media, we have missed another several weeks of the economy continuing to perform very well. We already talked about inflation numbers. Inflation actually declining month over month, 0.1% for the first time since 2020. This is what MAGAs have been saying we want. Well, you got it. Whether it's good for the economy or not is another question, but you got it. Inflation very much under control. Yet another record high for stock markets. Yesterday, stunning days. Again, it's how many times are we going to do this? S&P 500 up 1%. The Dow up 1%, more than 400 points. The NASDAQ, or NASDAQ, as former President Trump calls it, up more than 1%. The Russell 2000 up 1%. Okay, yet another set of fresh highs for the stock market. What about jobs? Employers continue adding jobs, right around 175,000 new jobs per month over the last quarter. Unemployment still very low. It's now reached 4.1%. We had this sustained under 4% period for a record period of time. We've now gotten to 4.1%, breaking that streak, but still very low historically. We're seeing $5 meal deals at McDonald's. I don't know if any of you have been watching Copa America, where hopefully Argentina will finally break the curse of Messi in this tournament and win on... Okay, I've been watching it, and one of the common commercials I'm seeing during the games at the bottom of the screen is $5 meal deals at McDonald's. We're seeing discounted groceries at big box stores. Gas prices are down. So listen, the reality is the good economy was also being ignored before Biden's debate, but for different reasons and in exchange for other stories. We now are seeing a continued solid economy that on just about every metric is looking fine. It's looking fine. I don't need, the realization I had as I was reading the inflation data and the stock market data and the jobs data and reflecting on Biden's debate performance was I don't need Biden to be better at citing statistics about the economy during a debate. I just want the statistics about the economy to look good. And this is the argument from those who believe that at the end of the day, the debate is not going to have this disastrous impact on President Biden's re-election chances. Now, later today, President Biden is going to be holding what they're calling, I'm not kidding about this, not a joke, folks, not a joke. They're calling it a big boy press conference, okay? Operation Big Boy. And the idea here is that Joe Biden is going to take questions from members of the press to show that he will think on his feet and he is cognitively up to the task of becoming president once again for 4 more years. I'm very interested in seeing how this goes. I will be live streaming it on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. I hope you will join me for that. But the big story here is a continued, solid, good-looking economy, a story that has been effectively buried by Joe Biden's debate performance. And by the way, the absence of enough criticism of Donald Trump's debate performance, which was an absolute disaster. So here's what we have coming up today. I'll kind of let me give you the texture of today's show. We're going to take a quick break. I then am going to go through the last 24 hours of conspiracy. Morning Joe now piling on to the conspiracy that former President Barack Obama is orchestrating the removal of President.
Wow. Again, doing that shit again, but hey, just one bad debate. Just one bad debate. Now, this is after the press conference and after the debate. We're not gonna listen to all of it.
Result. I'm a little bit older. Hopefully with age comes a little wisdom. And here's what I know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. I know how, and I've demonstrated how to do this job.
Looking good.
I know Americans want a president, not a dictator. And I also know no self-respecting American president would ever be putting a puppy like this guy is. That's what he is. You know, Americans want to protect their freedoms, not give them up. I know what America stands for. We stand for the proposition that all people are created equal and deserve an equal. No, I mean, we've never fully lived up to it. We've never walked away from it, though. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let Donald Trump walk this nation's salvation. Folks, this race is about your family. It's about your freedom. It's about democracy. Are you with me? Are we going to stop Donald Trump? Let's get this done. Let's remember who we are. We are the United States of America, and there's nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together.
That was Biden at his Michigan rally at what was easily the best night he's had in the last several weeks. And look, Biden has clearly had a bad few weeks, if not the worst few weeks he's had as a politician. But right here, he is doing exactly what he needs to be doing, which is A, to acknowledge the elephant in the room, own up to the fact that he's not as young as he used to be, that he'll mix up names, and that he's not trying to gaslight us into believing that he's something he's not. But with that acknowledgement comes the most important point, and that is B, that the choice here is binary. It is a choice between someone who, yes, may be old, but will be honest, will protect our rights, and will defend democracy, and someone who, by the way, is just as old, but has already promised to be a dictator, who has promised to terminate the Constitution, whose Project 2025 agenda would usher in the end of our democracy as we currently know it by vastly expanding the power of the presidency. Project 2025 is the single most dangerous platform in the history of this country, and to Biden's extreme credit, he made that abundantly clear.
Trump Project 2025 will criminalize the shipping of abortion medication, anywhere to deny contraceptive covers, allow, ban nationwide. That's what Project 2025 is called about. Project 2025 will deploy the Department of Justice to prosecute Trump's enemies. And that's a real deal. Trump's enemies. Trump himself calls his campaign a campaign, as he calls it, revenge and retribution. That's what he says. Well, Trump's 2025 project will eliminate the civil service. No, I'm serious. Not a joke. Read it. And it'll allow him to hire tens of thousands of civil servants that are running only because they support Trump. They have to take a loyalty oath to Trump beforehand. Folks, that's not the United States of America. Trump's 2025 project will cut Social Security and Medicare, rip away protections for pre-existing health conditions, will eliminate $35 a month cap on insulin, allowing drug companies to jack up the prices back up to $400 a month. Stop Medicare for negotiating lower drug prices. And by the way, I got criticized for taking on Medicare. I mean, taking on the drug companies and the pharma for that. Well, it's not damn right. It's all right. But by the way, you know what it did? When I won, it cut the federal budget by $160 billion. What? Project 2025 will eliminate the department. He wants to eliminate the Department of Education. Not a joke. He wants to cut school lunch programs. No, I know this almost sounds like a joke, but it's real. He wants to eliminate Head Start for low-income children. This project will allow employers to stop paying overtime for hourly workers, but give the very wealthy another massive tax cut. The tax cut he's proposed is for $5 trillion over the next 10 years. So, Project 2025 is going to let him round up over 10 million people in America and put them in detention camps. You heard him say it. You heard him say what he wants to do. That's what he says he's going to do. Ripping them away from their homes, their schools, because Trump calls them animals who poison the blood of America. Look, folks, there's only one reason. Only some of Trump's plan 2020. It goes on for 900 pages. We've never seen anything like this. And it's not a joke. It's time for us to stop treating politics like entertainment and reality TV. Another 4 years of Donald Trump is deadly serious. Deadly serious. His proposals are deadly serious. America needs to wake up and realize that Trump and his mega republic is what they're trying to do. We're going to join them, we're going to engage them, and we're going to stop them.
And while this is the agenda that will be passed if Trump wins in November, which one might think would be an important point for a free press to consider, especially if we want to continue having a free press, instead, the media has effectively given Donald Trump a free pass. Apparently, the horse race coverage was just too enticing for the media writ large, and so instead of focusing on the fact that the Republican nominee for president wants to consolidate power and severely limit reproductive rights and eliminate the Department of Education and deport 15 to 20 million people and end protections for vulnerable communities and wage war on LGBT and trans Americans, they're focusing on Biden's bad debate and doing 24-hour news coverage pontificating on what will happen next. And look, I don't know what will happen, and if something does change, I'll be the first to tell you. But whether it's Biden or Kamala or anyone else on the left, the fact remains that the Democrats will protect your rights, your freedoms, and your democracy, and Donald Trump will try to rip them away.
Facts. He will do that, rip them away. So please, like I said, we need to go out and vote. We need to vote as quickly as possible. So, fast forward to today. Here is the current president of the United States talking to America.
Hello, Americans. I want to speak to you tonight about the need for us to lower the temperature in our politics. And to remember, while we may disagree, we are not enemies. We're neighbors. We're friends, co-workers, citizens, and most importantly, we're fellow Americans. We must stand together. Yesterday's shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania calls on all of us to take a step back. Take stock of where we are, how we go forward from here. Thankfully, former Trump is not seriously injured. I spoke with him last night. I'm grateful. He's doing well, and Jill and I keep him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victims who was killed. Corey was a husband, a father, a volunteer firefighter, a hero, sheltering his family from those bullets. We should all hold his family and all those injured in our prayers. Earlier today, I spoke about an ongoing investigation. We do not know the motive of the shooter yet. We don't know his opinions or affiliations. We don't know whether he had help or support, or if he communicated with anyone else. Law enforcement professionals, as I speak, are investigating those questions. Tonight, I want to speak to what we do know. A former president was shot. An American citizen killed while simply exercising his freedom to support the candidate of his choosing. We cannot, we must not go down this road in America. We've traveled before throughout our history. Violence has never been the answer. Whether it's with members of Congress of both parties being targeted and shot, or a violent mob attacking the Capitol on January 6th, or a brutal attack on the spouse of former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, or information and intimidation on election officials, or the kidnapping plot against the sitting governor, or an attempted assassination on Donald Trump. There is no place in America for this kind of violence or for any violence ever. Period. No exceptions. We can't allow this violence to be normalized. You know, the political record in this country has gotten very heated. It's time to cool it down. We all have a responsibility to do that. Yes, we have deeply felt strong disagreements. The stakes in this election are enormously high. I've said it many times that the choice in this election we make in this election is going to shape the future of America and the world for decades to come. I believe that with all my soul. I know that millions of my fellow Americans believe it as well. And some have a different view as to the direction our country should take. Disagreement is inevitable in American democracy. It's part of human nature. But politics must never be a literal battlefield and, God forbid, a killing field. I believe politics ought to be an arena for peaceful debate, to pursue justice, to make decisions guided by the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. We stand for an America, not of extremism and fury, but of decency and grace. All of us now face the time of testing as the election approaches. And the higher the stakes, the more fervent the passions become. This places an added burden on each of us to ensure that no matter how strong our convictions, we must never descend into violence. The Republican convention will start tomorrow. I've no doubt they'll criticize my record and offer their own vision for this country. I'll be traveling this week making the case for our record and the vision, my vision of the country, our vision. I'll continue to speak out strongly for our democracy, stand up for our Constitution and the rule of law, to call for action at the ballot box, no violence on our streets. That's how democracy should work. We debate and disagree. We compare and contrast the character of the candidates, the records, the issues, the agenda, the vision for America. But in America, we resolve our differences at the battle box. You know, that's how we do it, at the battle box, not with bullets. The power to change America should always rest in the hands of the people, not in the hands of a would-be assassin. You know, the path forward through competing visions of the campaign should always be resolved peacefully, not through acts of violence. You know, we're blessed to live in the greatest country on earth, and I believe that with every soul, every power of my being. So tonight, I'm asking every American to recommit, to make America what it is. Think about it. What's made America so special? Here in America, everyone must be treated with dignity and respect, and hate must have no safe harbor. Here in America, we need to get out of our silos, where we only listen to those with whom we agree, where misinformation is rampant, where foreign actors fan the flames of our division to shape the outcomes consistent with their interests, not ours. Let's remember, here in America, while unity is the most elusive of all goals right now, nothing is more important for us now than standing together. We can do this. You know, from the beginning, our founders understood the power of passion, so they created democracy that gave reason and balance a chance to prevail over brute force. That's the American we must be. An American democracy where arguments are made in good faith. An American democracy where the rule of law is respected. An American democracy where decency, dignity, fair play aren't just quaint notions, but living, breathing realities. We owe that to those who come before us, to those who gave their lives for this country. We owe that to ourselves. We owe it to our children and our grandchildren. Look, let's never lose sight of who we are. Let's remember we are the United States of America. There is nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.
Boy, it does a job good. Keep telling y'all, he is the man for the job. He has earned the right to be president. He has earned the right to be president. I'm sorry if anyone doesn't think so. He has earned the right to be president. And one more time.
Good afternoon. Last night, I spoke with Donald Trump. I'm sincerely grateful that he's doing well and recovering. And we had a short but good conversation. Jill and I are keeping him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victim who was killed. He was a father. He was protecting his family from the bullets that were being fired. He lost his life. God love him. We're also praying for the full recovery of those who were injured. We're grateful to the Secret Service agents and other law enforcement agencies and individuals who risked their lives literally for our nation. As I said last night, there is no place in America for this kind of violence or any violence for that matter. An assassination attempt is contrary to everything we stand for as a nation, everything. It's not who we are as a nation. It's not America. And we cannot allow this to happen. Unity is the most elusive goal of all. But nothing is important than that right now, unity. We'll debate and we'll disagree. That's not going to change. But we're going to not lose sight, in fact, who we are as Americans. Look, Vice President Harris and I were just briefed in the Situation Room by my Homeland Security team, including the Director of the FBI, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Attorney General, the Director of the Secret Service, my Homeland Security Advisor, the National Security Advisor, and we're going to continue to be briefed. The FBI is leading this investigation, which is still in its early stages. We don't yet have any information about the motive of the shooter or know who he is. I urge everyone, please, don't make assumptions about his motives or his affiliations. Let the FBI do their job and their partner agencies do their job. I'm instructed that this investigation be thorough and swift, and the investigators will have every resource they need to get this done. Look, as this investigation continues, here's what we're going to do. First, Mr. Trump is a former president and nominee of the Republican Party, already receives a heightened level of security. And I've been consistent in my direction to the Secret Service to provide him with every resource, capability, and protective measure necessary to ensure his continued safety. Second, I've directed the head of the Secret Service to review all security measures for the Republican National Convention, which is scheduled to start tomorrow. And third, I've directed an independent review of the national security at yesterday's rally to assess exactly what happened. And we'll share the results of that independent review with the American people as well. And finally, I'll be speaking more about this tonight at Greater Lent from the Oval Office. We must unite as one nation. We must unite as one nation to demonstrate who we are. So may God bless you all and may God protect our troops. Thank you very much.
Keep telling y'all, that man is doing the job correctly. He's doing the job correctly. All right. Yeah. We have reached the end of Common Sense Party Podcast. Was the Trump shooting stage part 2. Again, I'll give my opinion. I think it was staged for low poll numbers, to give him a boost, to have sympathetic character. A lot of people say people died. They say it's collateral damage. A lot of people do things for, in their eyes, as right reasons, and civilians are collateral damage. Case in point, Israel bombs Gaza, kill tens of thousands of Palestinians, and they don't give a shit. So why is it so far-fetched that someone in the Republican Party staged this? The kid didn't even have on a bulletproof vest. What shooter goes on a shooting spree doesn't have a bulletproof vest. All right. I'll leave it at that. This has been the Common Sense Party Podcast. I'm your host, DOTTLEY. We at the Common Sense Party Pod's mission is to inform our listeners on topics that affect the everyday person. Rate, review, follow, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to rate, to review, and follow, subscribe. Please give us 5 stars, give us 4 stars, give us 3 stars, give us 2 stars. You can give us 1. You can even give us 1 star. And if you don't, I'll just assume I'm doing it properly. We're available on all major platforms, available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Samsung Podcasts, Pandora, YouTube, formerly Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and Apple Podcasts. We're available on all social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok, Threads. You can contact us at the Common Sense Party Pod at gmail.com. You can also support the Common Sense Party Pod at Cash App or Zelle. The information is on the About page of our podcast. Again, I thank you for listening. I thank you for giving us time and listen to our views. Also, please go out and vote. We will beat Trump, Project 2025, and the Republicans at the ballot box. That's the way to do it. No political violence. Have a good one.